when we got ready to jump into Normandy, there's 3 sections in a demolition platoon. Jim Davidson, Sergeant Davidson, was in charge of the 3rd. He had an assignment of destroying 2 bridges and on the Dove River, and then holding the 3rd bridge, if possible, until the land forces reached it at evening of the 1st day. They didn't much believe Jim could take care of his assignment, and they asked me if I would volunteer to handle a 3-bridge assignment. And I told them I'd give it a try, but I would need extra people to do it with and do it correctly. And I'd need 6 more men. They gave me 6 more men, and we jumped in to Normandy there at midnight on June the 5th. And I took the 20 men with me, and we got into some real heavy fire as we approached our drop zone, or area that we were going to invade. About 8 miles from it, we were near St. Mary Glees. And when I saw we were losing as much altitude as we were, the people are surprised when you tell them that you approach your drop zone at about 400 feet. They think that's awful low to be trying to make a parachute jump. But the German radar equipment was not sophisticated enough that they could pick up anything below 500 feet. So we would approach at 400 to avoid the opposition of their radar. And when I saw we were losing altitude, I thought we better get out while we could, still have some altitude to operate in. And we began to jump out there at St. Mary Glees, which was 8 miles from the main bridge that we wanted to blow up, or that we wanted to hold. A big chunk of flak came up through the belly of the ship between Piccadilly Willie Green and myself, and it hit his reserve instead of my main chute, and his reserve blossomed out all over the plane. And I turned around to see if I could assist him there for just a few seconds, and that caused a break in the force of our people. It divided them in half. And I went on out, jumped on out with the rest of the men behind me, and we began to attack the positions in the area of St. Mary Glees and headed toward the Dove River, which they had flooded. The Germans evidently knew when we were coming and where we were coming, because the first ones that the invasion had been postponed 1 day due to the tide. And the first ones that we interviewed, they said, "Why didn't you come in last night like you were supposed to?" But they had flooded the entire area along the Dove River to keep us from having access to it. When I got on the ground, of course, I could not find any man. Not one of my 20 men could I locate, and we were scattered down in 1s and 2s. And I fought around there for about 2 hours by myself, and I hit a hedgerow there that was full of krauts, and there was like a T-shaped formation of hedgerow there, and running parallel to the road. Across the road was another hedgerow with a dugout in it, and I thought I could see the shadow of a man down in the dugout. And I was getting more pressure every minute from the 3 hedgerows that were forming on my position. When we began to make the invasion, we tried to take every effort we could to make a success of it, And the German word for halt is halt, just same as ours. So we changed the word halt for our benefit, that even the word flash. And for a reply to that, we use the word thunder, because the Germans cannot pronounce a TH. They would have said thunder, even had they known that we were using the word thunder. And as a reply to the challenge, then, we use the word welcome, because the Germans cannot pronounce a W. They would have said welcome, even though they had known that the word was welcome. They could not have used it, because they would have said welcome, and that would have immediately identified them. But occasionally, quite often in fact, on a night drop like that, you may be going around the corner of a building and come face to face with another soldier that you can't identify, whether he's German or a paratrooper. And you're both standing there with a gun pointed in the other's belly, waiting for some sign of indication. So before we jumped into Normandy, they sent off and requested that they supply the 3 divisions with crickets, like you used to get out of Cracker Jack boxes. And they ordered 60,000 of those made up for the invasion. This surprises a lot of people to think that there were 60,000 airborne people involved in the invasion of Normandy. But there was the 82nd Division, the 101st Division, and the British Red Devils. There was 20,000 in each division. So we needed 60,000 of the crickets. And if you're standing there eyeball to eyeball with a man in the dark, and you don't know how they identify whether or not he is a paratrooper, if you use the word flash or halt or something, he's going to gut shoot you. But you cricket just one time, and if he doesn't cricket twice and reply, you start gut shooting. So when I kept watching this dugout across the road from me, and I was certain that there was a man in it, I cricked my cricket, and I didn't get any reply, and I cricked it again, and I didn't get any reply. And I knew I had to charge across and get in the dugout with the guy, or get him on the bayonet. And I made a run across the road, started across the road, and he came up out of the dugout screaming, flash, flash, flash. So I knew it. Immediately it was paratrooper. I just barely missed him with my bayonet, and I went right down in the dugout with him. He said, you better be careful charging these dugouts. Said all of them are armed, got machine guns in them. I said, yeah, I know. I said, this is about the 3rd one I've been through already. But I said, I didn't really get killed. I said, you did. I said, why didn't you answer my cricket? He said, well, I'll tell you why. He said, there's about as many Germans that's got crickets now off of dead paratroopers as there are live paratroopers. And he said, they're using them just like duck callers. He said, I thought actually that you were a German trying to get me to expose. He said, if you'd been a German, you know what I'd had to have done? I said, no. What would you have had to have done? He said, I would have had to have jumped up and run across the road and beat you to death with this belt of machine gun ammunition. Because he said, that's all I've got left to fight with. He had been a machine gunner when he left the door of that plane. And the opening shot tore the machine gun loose from his leg. And all he had left to fight with was a belt of machine gun ammunition. So he looked like Cox's army to me. I gave him a couple of grenades, and I said, you just collar my tail. I said, we're on the attack right now.